All right, welcome back to the 9 live from downtown San Jose, where during this hour we are focusing on the South Bay, and there is a special place in Saratoga. Think tea gardens, think koi ponds, think waterfalls. Think this started out as a personal retreat, and Gassia, it has turned into something very, very special for all to enjoy.
I mean, it's immensely popular, but it's also sort of a hidden gem. Our Claudine Wong went to Hakone Gardens. It's a story of love, it's a story of beauty, it's a story of culture, and Claudine Wong is going to show us all about it.
Tucked in the Santa Cruz Mountains is a 15-acre Japanese garden. On a busy weekend, Hakone, which is a public park here in the city of Saratoga, will see several hundred visitors. But in many ways, this place is still one of the Bay Area's hidden gems.
A visit to Hakone winds you through a garden built more than 100 years ago.
This is probably the most popular area here with the pond because the fish, the koi.
Unlike other Japanese gardens, Hakone was not built as an exhibition. Instead, it was much more personal. Back in 1915, Oliver and Isabel Stein fell in love with Japan and its culture at the Panama Pacific Exposition. And so they built Hakone on 15 acres in Saratoga and named it after Japan's famous Hakone National Park.
They built it as their personal retreat. They lived in San Francisco, and Mr. Stein was a developer, and Mrs. Stein was actually into the arts and cultures. And so they wanted to have someplace to go and relax on the weekends and holidays.
The gardens have since had several owners, including Charles Tilden and his family. But in 1966, the city of Saratoga bought the property and opened it to the public.
The mission of Hakone, the foundation, is to use Hakone Gardens to promote Japanese culture, Asian culture and arts, music, entertainment.
Still, even now, as you stroll through, you can in many ways see this garden through Mrs. Stein's eyes.
This is the upper house. This was actually built in 1917. It was designed by a Japanese architect. The building's over 100 years old now, and we haven't had to do too much work.
More than a century later, the view is breathtaking.
Mrs. Stein, she wanted to see the beauty from the veranda of the upper house. And so that's where you actually see the beauty of the garden, so that you can look down and see all the features of the garden.
And a favorite spot, the koi pond.
The smaller ones are less than a year old because those are this year's babies.
The fish here know people often buy food for them from the visitor center.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, they
know.
And that's the problem with with the wildlife is that raccoons. We have raccoons, bobcats, coyotes, and so they come down.
It would be easy to just stay here.
The atmosphere, it's unforgettable.
I think that people who build it put a lot of thought in it, in every step and every place.
But there are so many spots to explore, so many spots you could miss.
That was one of the benefits of the pandemic. We had a one-way path set up, so it forced people to see everything.
The one-way path is gone now, but here's an insider's tip. Follow the arrows. They'll take you to the Wisteria Arbor.
The wisteria will bloom in April, late April.
And the bamboo gardens. And while this was built as a personal retreat, the Cultural Exchange Center is also a reminder of lessons to be learned.
We do try to take social responsibility, and our current exhibit in the Cultural Exchange Center it's on Executive Order 9066, which is the internment of the Japanese citizens.
That internment is personal. It forced Hakone gardener James Sasaki to leave the gardens temporarily.
He and his family were interned in Topaz, Utah, and so for the 4 years that he was interned, he was welcomed back by the Tilden family after the war. But we have two other board of trustees one who was actually interned in camp as a young child, and another whose mother was interned during the war.
More than a century later, there are stories to be told in the beauty that endures.
I think it's good to spend whole day here until sunset.
A space that in these difficult times continues to give people something that is timeless, peace and tranquility.
Wow, to think the Steins had this vision back in 1915, and here we are, 106 years later. I'm sure they're smiling because that Japanese garden, it is a beautiful place no matter what corner you're strolling in.
And
Yeah.
just like Claudine said, we have such a greater appreciation for being outdoors, just the beauty,
Yeah.
the clean air. It's an incredible place. If you haven't been, you should definitely go.